Could your influencer startup reach world domination status? This week on Cooking Up an Influencer Startup, we're going to look at proliferation. That's stage 7 in the process of creating an influencer startup. I'm Doc John, the EntreProfessor, and I teach entrepreneurship at a leading university. I'm also a content creator and an entrepreneur, and in this series, I'm working through all the content that the class is going through as they're taking this class. I'm also making dinner each week as I prepare to provide a meal for the class so we can have a meal together as we start to work as a content creation community. We're looking at creating content and building money models. This week, I'm making tacos, and we're going to talk about tacos, merch, and market sizing. Let's get into it. So let's start with the taco. Why am I making tacos for dinner? Well, first of all, they're delicious, and who doesn't love a good taco? And I just love the way that tacos are so simple, yet so complex. They're popular worldwide, and who doesn't love Taco Tuesdays? They literally have taken over an entire day of the week. So we have millions of permutations of tacos. They've come such a long way, and we might even say that they've achieved world domination status. And so this week, we're going to be making tacos, and we're also going to be talking about what it would take for your influencer startup to achieve world domination status. Now, what do I mean by that? That sounds very nefarious, and that's not really the intent. When any business starts, it's part of some category, or it's creating some value for a group of customers. But over time, if it grows and gets bigger, it starts to have more notoriety and more people are aware of it. A business is thought to have world domination status when it's gotten to a point where everyone thinks of that product along with their category. Brands like Kleenex are always thought of as the tissue of choice because that brand has such a strong connection. Amazon.com is thought to have world domination status. Why? They provide products and services for customers worldwide. They serve a very large audience of customers, many of which are very different from one another in what they need or what they go to Amazon for. And they also have really expanded over time the capabilities they have to not just serve one market, but many, many markets. These are the characteristics of a world domination brand, and you can achieve world domination with an influencer startup. And if you don't believe me, think about creators like MrBeast, where known worldwide, worth billions of dollars, also serving many millions, billions, or even more followers, serving millions, even billions of viewers through their influencer startup and providing impact well beyond what the original channel was about. So when we think about the 7 steps of the process, this last step, proliferation, is where we go from just creating a channel with content that has a money model, and we start to think about how do we expand this to more markets, more customers, more products? And that's what we're going to talk about today. I'm going to go through 6 different ways that you can expand the platform and proliferate your influencer startup. You're also going to want to stay to the end. I'm going to give you a bonus on merch or product sales, and I'm going to walk through and show you an AI technology platform that is certainly going to take the world by storm. And for a content creator, if there's a product you can dream of that you'd like to bring to market and really leverage your influencer brand to move it forward, you're not going to want to miss this. So make sure you stay to the end to see that. So making tacos, and one of the things that's so interesting about tacos is the main thing that every taco has in common is a fairly complex set of seasonings. Seasonings really are one of the main things that makes a taco a taco. And of course, the shell itself, or what you put the taco on. But even a taco salad or a taco bowl may not even have the shell. But the seasoning is one thing that you see in common with most tacos. So whether you're having fish tacos, shrimp tacos, beef tacos, vegetable tacos, cauliflower tacos like I'm going to make today, they have seasonings in common that make them truly a taco. And so one of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to start by mixing up some taco seasoning. And what we'll see is The seasoning itself is at center stage with the taco, and so we're going to do that. I also should point out I've made some rice to go with the tacos. I already made those in my Our Place cookware, and you can see I have a nice big pot of rice that'll go with those. I did that beforehand because it takes a lot of time and not real different from previous weeks, so we've already got that in motion. And now I'm going to make the seasonings, and then finally I'm going to chop up the vegetables and get ready to do a vegetarian taco. It's going to be a cauliflower taco, but it's also going to have beans mixed in and sweet potatoes. So we've got these here. I am what I am. These are going to give it some nice substance as well. So should be hearty tacos. They're also vegetarian. I am going to also make beef tacos separately. So I'll offer two choices for those that want to eat meat versus those that want a vegetarian option. And I'm going to use a 2-quart slow cooker for the vegetable mix and have my regular slow cooker with the beef mix. And that way there won't be any cross-contamination between the two, and everyone can choose the one that they like. In addition, I'll have some lettuce there as well. So between the rice, the lettuce, the taco shells, we're going to use some corn tortillas, soft tortilla shells, and I'll have hard corn tortilla chips. So there'll be lots of choices if someone wants to eat this more like a nachos, or if they want to eat it like tacos traditionally, or if they want to do a taco salad or a bowl. So there'll be lots of choices for everyone. So before I start making the tacos, I want to talk about market sizing. And so one of the things we look at with market sizing is how big is the market we're going into. So one way we could say the market for content creation is we could say this is a $500 billion industry and growing rapidly. So not only is it big, it's getting bigger. And so that means we have a lot of space to work when we create our influencer startup. So I'm going to break this down into 3 phases or 3 components to market sizing: the TAM, SAM, SOM. And in a few minutes, I'll tell you what those are and what they mean. If you've been watching this channel at all, you know I do a lot of TAM, SAM, SOM breakdowns. I have a whole playlist on how to come up with market sizing, different ways to research market sizing, and different ways to think about market sizing from the top down and the bottom up, and I'll explain what that means. But first, let's make the seasonings for this taco mix. So I have lots of seasonings to work with here. I've got a chili powder, I've got some red crushed peppers, I have ground cumin, I have garlic powder, I have whole oregano, dried oregano, I have some paprika, I have onion powder, and I also have salt and coarse pepper. And so I'm going to mix all of those right into a bowl so we can get that all mixed together and just right. And that way it'll be ready to mix in with the cauliflower, and the cauliflower, sweet potato, and bean mixture will mix in with the seasonings. And then I'm going to actually roast that, so we get that nice roasted kind of blended mix. And then later, since I'm doing this the day before, I'll be able to heat it in the slow cooker, so it'll still have like a nice slow heat. But we'll get it started with the roast today in the oven, and that way we'll have it all ready to go. So with that, let's get started with the spices. So first, I'm going to pull out my measuring tools here. We're going to do a 1/4 cup of chili powder. And I suspect this is going to pretty well wipe out my seasonings for some of these, which is okay, but just know that kind of coming to the end here, so a 1/4 cup of chili powder. Next, we'll do 3 tablespoons of cumin. So I've got ground cumin here. We'll go 2, 3. Still got about a tablespoon left in case I want to use that again. Now we're going to do a tablespoon of paprika, crushed red peppers, and also salt. So you can see here, we're getting a nice peppery mix, kind of mixing that all together, get all the spices together beforehand. Okay, then we're going to do a 1.5 tablespoons of coarse pepper, onion powder, the oregano, and the garlic powder. So we'll do those rapid fire here. So I'll have 1.5. It's ground pepper. Next, we'll do the onion powder. Do 1.5. Next, we'll do the whole oregano. Do 1.5. I can actually do that double at a time. Just thought that sooner. Here's some garlic powder. And again, we'll do 1.5 tablespoons. All right, now I'm going to mix that all together. Got a nice spice mix there. And that'll be ready to mix in with the cauliflower beans and sweet potato combo. So let's talk a little bit more about market sizing, the TAM, SAM, SOM. So that's total available market, serviceable addressable market, and serviceable obtainable market. These sound like big words. This is actually one of the more complicated things in the minds of those that are studying entrepreneurship or those that are maybe doing a startup and working on some kind of a pitch or something like that. But it's not as hard as it sounds. It does, though, really represent one of the most important parts of preparing to enter a market with a new product. So even though I strongly recommend just get started and start to create an MVP, a minimum viable product, and start to iterate on that as soon as possible without even spending a whole lot of time and effort to begin with, once you start to think, I have a product idea here that solves a real problem for a real group of people, I think I want to turn it into a business, very soon after, you should really look at the market itself, because you may not be thinking at that point about proliferation, which is stage 7, and when you're in stages 1 and 2. But at the same time, if you do start to grow a business, if you start to bring on investors or partners or anything like that, you do have to start to think about, is there enough market here to make it worth my effort and the invested capital to create this business? Even as an influencer startup, you might start with that total available market. And you could say at one level, if you wanted to go to the highest level, the creator economy is a $500 billion industry. And so therefore, you might be looking at the total available market of $500 billion. However, you may say, well, I can look at that whole industry and say there are whole parts of that industry that I'm not really going to be involved in, or maybe there's a smaller version of it. It could be that you just are looking at social media as your platform. It also is a point where it's important to think about, what is your influencer startup business? Because it might be that your content creation is incidental to what's actually a different kind of business. So for instance, if you were doing a channel on real estate to help you to sell real estate because you're a realtor, that's one way you might approach it. Where you're creating content to get people to come and buy homes through you or list homes with you. And so you're creating authority and expertise. In that case, you're probably not even really going to be participating that much in the creator economy, though you might, in the sense you might create content that ends up generating monetization on the channel and all those kinds of things. But where you really may be making money is on real estate itself and the sale of real estate. So you even have to start with, what market am I in, and making sure that you're looking at that. But looking at the content creator economy, the total available market is $500 billion, or heading towards $500 billion. So that's an enormous market. No one person is ever going to dominate all of that market. But a world domination business would be one that has a definable section or slice of that pie. So if you think about, in terms of all the content creators, MrBeast probably has a sliver of that, what represents that total available market. But most smaller creators are probably not going to really show up in that space. You might want to think in terms of, is there a sub-segment to represent the total available market? The second part is the serviceable addressable market. And I just want to actually address something here. A lot of times people get their A's mixed up in the TAM and the SAM. So sometimes you'll hear somebody say total addressable market as the thing. And you can do that. Sometimes what I usually see is someone will say total addressable market to kind of mash serviceable addressable and total available market together, which is fine if you're just doing back of the napkin market sizing. But if you're going to do a deeper analysis, it really is important to distinguish between these two, because total available market means this is all the money that's being spent in this entire area, this entire field or market or industry. Whereas a serviceable addressable market, you're starting to get into what market could I address? Where does my content fit? So within an influencer startup, total available market might be everyone who's a creator on YouTube, where a serviceable addressable market might be everyone who's a creator in the space that you're in. So let's say you're in the entertainment space, or you're in the kind of relationship space, or the wealth building space. You know, these are addressable markets within, and you might say, I'm really operating in this space. So if I have a Lego channel, I'm probably not going to be reaching people that are creating content or I'm probably not going to be, I probably won't be competing with creators that are creating health or medical content, because it's really a different market and you don't have that expertise. So in that way, the serviceable addressable market, think of that as taking that whole market and slicing it into pieces or types, maybe content creator types, and then looking at those in terms of what's the smaller segment that I'm a part of. The content that I create is part of this other segment. So this is where it starts to get more granular, but at the same time, you couldn't dominate everything even in these spaces, because it's bigger than just your content. The entertainment space, for instance, probably has a lot of different subsegments. And this is where you'd want to move to your serviceable obtainable market. And so obtainable would mean that right now I'm creating content that would be appealing to this audience, to this IVP, ideal viewer profile, and I can likely get some or even all of that space. So when you think about, as you niche down in terms of your content, it may become easier and easier for you to become a known creator in that space, and also to be able even to become a dominant creator in that space. So an example here, if you were a creator in the entertainment space, but you created content about Star Wars, so commentary, reviews, Easter eggs on Star Wars movies, you can probably become to be a known name in that space pretty quickly and easily, because there aren't as many creators that are creating in that space as there are in, say, the entertainment as a whole, or maybe the movie industry. So as you get closer down from the TAM, which is everything, to the SAM, which is, you know, kind of the big category that you're in, to the SOM, which is the specific category that you're creating in and creating for, that's where you could become much more known and knowable in that space. And so that's where your serviceable attainable market, you really want to think in terms of, within a few years, I could become a, someone who has a significant, what's often called market share or piece of the pie in that space. So you'll start with that serviceable obtainable market. And the idea with world domination is, as you become known, as you create a brand, as you create a content platform, as you create a business model where you're being very successful in one space, you do have the potential to move out and maybe move from that original serviceable obtainable market to other adjacent viewers or market opportunities in the addressable market, the serviceable addressable market, and then even later, or maybe even further out from there to more addressable markets into the total available market. So this is how market sizing works. I usually teach market sizing on top of a building. So I will have a group of students meet me at a building that has a park or some kind of a public space at the top of a building in the city. And then I can say, look out from here to the horizon. Imagine everything that you can see, the entire city representing a total available market. Now let's zoom in a little bit and say, let's look at the block here, or the few blocks that are right in this area that we can see that this building is part of. And that might represent the serviceable addressable market. But then when we think about this building that we're actually standing on top of, that's right here. We have access to it. We're in this space, and think of that as a serviceable, obtainable market. And that's a metaphor that I have heard many students say, wow, this has made it so much easier to understand. TAM, SAM, SOM, I get it now. And so that's one of the devices that I use to be able to present that. Okay, so I'm going to get into some ways that you can start to proliferate your influencer startup once you have an established brand presence with an ideal customer profile. Once you have a brand presence with an ideal viewer profile and an ideal customer profile that you're working with, you can, different ways that you can then move out from that space. So while we talk about that, I'm going to go ahead and start chopping some vegetables. I've got cauliflower and also sweet potatoes that I'm going to roast. I'm going to mix in some black beans to create a mixture there, and we're going to do that in the oven. Okay, let's talk through 6 ways that you can expand your business beyond beyond your original business model to start towards this proliferation process. So 6 ways to proliferate your influencer startup. And we're going to dive in and start chopping up this cauliflower as well as the sweet potatoes. So let's start with the first one. The first one's actually pretty simple, and it's maybe pretty obvious. It's add-ons. So this is where you have a brand, you have something that's already existing, you have a platform for creating content, you hopefully have a content factory that you've created, and so now you have all of this this good start. You have some things that you can depend on. And so you want to then go a little bit further. Well, this is where some add-on products or add-on capabilities can be really useful. You can expand to more markets. So when you look at creators like Gary Vaynerchuk, who is now talking about lots of different things, he started out as a wine channel. He started out working in his dad's liquor store and really just starting to share about things that he's learning about wine so that other people could learn with them. And as time went on, what he found was he was actually knew more about it than a lot of people did, and in fact eventually became kind of an authority on wine, at least in the eyes of his viewers, in the eyes of those that followed him. And so this is where his following really got very loyal in one category. But he started to do add-ons. He started to talk about other topics. He started to get into other fields or other content sets, and then he got into things like cryptocurrency, NFTs. He's really into sports. He talks a lot about the New York Jets. He says he wants to buy one day. So, you see someone that started out in one category and now has added on to that platform and started to move into other areas as well. So that's the first one. The second one would be more ideal viewer profiles. So this is moving beyond the first set of viewers, but taking a similar set of content, but moving to other viewers, those that maybe wouldn't initially have fallen inside the ideal viewer profile, but in time have, the channel is expanded and you're able to reach more viewers and just in different ideal viewer profile spaces. So this would be an example like MrBeast started out, I'm sure, with more of a niche following, but became more and more appealing to more people, probably as he increased the kind of content that he created, as more people talked about it, as people introduced him to viewers that normally wouldn't go looking for his type of content, but they heard good things, and so they went and moved forward with it. So these are all examples of what it would look like to expand the customer target segments that you might go after with your particular influencer startup. A third way to proliferate your business would be what I would call adjacencies or adjacent markets. Kind of a big word to basically say things that are similar, but they're on the edges. So for instance, like Gary Vaynerchuk originally had a wine channel. One thing he might have considered doing would be moving to creating food products, because a lot of times when people are thinking about wine, they're also thinking about food. So he might have gone to an adjacent area of content creation related to food items, maybe gourmet foods. And the connection might be, it's like with the wines that he's showing, here are some really good food items that pair well with certain kinds of wines. And so in that way, he could start to go to an adjacent content type and start to create content in an adjacent area. It's not the same as his previous or normal content creation area, but at the same time, it does represent something that is related. And so he can make that connection. And those that are interested in wine may also be interested in gourmet food, or they may become interested in gourmet food because he has started to introduce them to something that maybe they don't have as much familiarity with. And so now the audience is kind of moving into an adjacent space, but he's also now perhaps more appealing to those that are interested in that adjacent space that weren't previously all that interested in the first one. So this is where third way to proliferate would be to go to those adjacent topics or content types. So now you're not just kind of reaching different audiences with the same content, but you're reaching a different audience and crossing over with your current audience, expanding your reach to different areas, but at the same time, keeping something that's similar about that first approach. Number 4, in most businesses, I would call it geographic expansion. And I think that it may be geographic in a content creator space, but it may mean different things. But I think about the way you see a lot of content creators now starting to create their content in multiple languages, and even YouTube now making it possible to have a channel automatically be transitioned into other languages. So at that point, it's becoming appealing to a different group of people, a group of people that perhaps don't speak the original language. So if you have an English speaking channel and now you also make it available in French or in Spanish or something like that, or Hindi, you would start to attract a different audience that would be able to view it, because now it's in a language that they understand where previously was not. And so that might be not even a geographical expansion, but it's reaching an audience that you didn't have access to before, even if they're localized, but also potentially in other parts of the world as well. So I'm going to go ahead and move all the vegetables here into this bowl, and we've got the sweet potatoes and we've got the cauliflower. I'm going to break this cauliflower up a little bit more. I want to make sure it's small enough pieces that it'll easily go onto a taco shell, or it can also go into a salad or onto nachos or something like that. So we'll do this. Now we're going to be ready to mix in some beans, and then we'll mix in our seasonings. For the beans, I'm going to be using Green Valley Organics here. This is black beans. I'm going to actually drain these first, and then I'm going to mix them in with this. Then we'll start to add the seasonings, mix it all together, and they'll be ready to roast in the oven. I'm preheating now. I'm about 400 degrees, so I'm almost where I want to be. I'm going to heat this in the oven for about 20 to 25 minutes on 425. That will roast them most of the way. They won't be completely soft at that point. We'll let the slow cooker kind of finish them tomorrow. And pouring out the beans here, I'm going to go ahead and rinse these all the way through. One thing here is I'm going to actually put these out on a paper towel and dry them a little bit, because I don't want them to make the roasting mixture soupy, and I don't want the seasonings to stick in the wrong way either. All right, so I got a plate. I'm going to put some paper towels out on top, and I really just want to give these beans a little bit of a dry off here so they're not gumming everything up. All right, so go ahead and dump these out, paper towels, and I'm just gonna pat these dry a little bit. Nothing too serious, but I just want to get some of that moisture out so that they don't keep everything soupy here, and then we'll go ahead and dump those in here. Okay, so now we've got the beans, got all the different things here. I'm just gonna mix this all together. It's ready to go. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and mix in my seasonings. I'm actually going to use 2 bowls because my mixture got pretty big here when I added some additional, so we'll mix in a little bit at a time here between the 2, but I'm going to mix in some of the seasonings. All right, going to get that all mixed in, so kind of all through, kind of just powders all of the cauliflower and sweet potatoes. I'll do the same thing with this one. Do it in a couple waves like I did here, just to get it all even throughout. And there we go. Now that's all mixed in. Kind of put this back together, actually. Okay, so next I'm gonna spread these out on these cookie sheets. I've used a parchment paper here underneath so it won't stick. I just want to be able to roast all this really good. Kind of mixing, sure everything's kind of distributed evenly here. So we've got the beans and the sweet potatoes and the cauliflower spread out nicely. Same thing with the second group. Now, one that's still pretty large here, so I'll kind of break that down a little bit. All right. Those are nice and spread out. So those are going to be ready to bake. We can go ahead and put those into the oven. As you can see, those are going to come out real nicely. So a 5th way that you can proliferate your influencer startup is licensing. So this is where you've created a brand, it has some value, and you can really start to license that to others. So this is where you could start to franchise a brand. And what that might look like in an influencer startup world is you might start to invite others to create content on your channel. You might start to have others that are sort of enjoying the well-established audience that you have, but creating different types of content. A good example of this is Dude Perfect has created their own platform where other creators can create content for their platform, and they've created an opportunity for others to, in a sense, license their audience and start to expand on it. You can also think of licensing in terms of taking your brand name and applying it to other things. So if someone says, I want my event or my brand to be associated with yours, they might be able to kind of pay to license your brand, maybe create products or anything like that related to it. And so there are lots of opportunities to expand, proliferate your brand through licensing, using the platform, the brand, the name that you've established, and allowing others to use it to support their revenue generating activities. Finally, number 6 is data monetization. And this is one that in most startups, there's some version of data monetization. And in an influencer startup, you can have the same kind of thing. If you are engaging with customers in a way where you're getting data and information about them, you can start to use that data in a number of different ways that people will pay for. So data monetization in the past has been things like creating benchmarks or, kind of using data to find patterns and trends and to do research using data that you've collected or that you've compiled because of your particular brand platform. In the AI age, this is where data monetization can have an entirely new perspective. You can use data from the content that you've created, from the engagement you've had with your employee, from the engagement that you've had with your viewers, and even data you collect through the way that you interact with users. I've seen some platforms do things like coaching, where all of the different coaching engagements they have with customers, surveys they give their customers to see where they are, what ideas they're working on, what content they're creating, or what types of products they're creating, or what types of services they're creating, and using that information to train AI data models that they can then sell for others to use at a fee. It also could be used for someone who's creating AI training or AI tools in your area, in your field, that would like to use that data to make their model more valuable, or to give them a baseline that is more informed beyond just opinion or generalized data. So there are lots of ways that you can actually license access to your data to be used for any of these purposes, for research, for benchmarking, for AI training. And so this is where the data itself can be part of your proliferation of your influencer startup. Okay, so we've got the rice, the vegetable mixture along with our taco seasons is in the oven, it's cooking. So we just talked briefly about how this is served. Such a great opportunity with tacos, as I mentioned before, to serve them in many different ways. So I have the soft corn tortilla shells or tortilla chips. You can put them over like nachos, or you could crunch those up into a salad, have some lettuce for salad, or you could do a bowl. We have rice. So this is the beauty of the taco, is that now it is expanding, it's proliferating into lots of different food types, and it's creating lots of different options, even in one single location. So before we go, I want to talk about product sales and merch sales. And there's actually a new way to create products for content creators that I've just recently learned about that could be a game changer. Historically, merch sales on platforms like Gumroad for digital products, or things like Printful, where you can have a product, like a merch product, like a t-shirt or a hat or something like that, created for you and sold and even delivered, so that you only have to kind of create the content itself, the product itself, but you don't actually have to deal with any of the logistics. You don't make as much money, but these platforms made it really easy to create merch. And of course, easy to create merch options include Canva, where you can design it in Canva and go right to producing a shirt or a hoodie or a mug or a hat. And so merch sales, there's lots of different options for, as you grow your following, to create merch that they're interested in specifically. But what you may also want to do is create a product that's very specific for your audience that would be interesting for them. So things like apparel items, or things like physical products that would be useful to them, or it could be things like vitamin supplements and nutrients, or food items, snacks, drinks. These in the past have been very difficult to create because they're expensive. You create a company to help you design them and create them, and then once you have it the way you like, you have to go through FDA approval. You have to go through through a lot of steps. It's a lot of money up front before you even create the product. And if anything's changed with your audience by the time it comes to market, it might not even be relevant anymore. But I recently discovered an AI technology that you have to check out if you're thinking about creating a product. This is Do.do, and it's D-O-U-G-H. This is an AI platform that will not only help you design and create a product that's specific to you and your audience, but they will also help you to design it, produce it, get it through any approvals that are needed, and actually handle the sale and delivery to the customer. So you're going to create, using AI prompts, the product itself, a landing page for that product, and they will take care of all the rest. Finding someone that can build the product, handling all the supply chain, creating the product, and getting it out into the world very quickly. They can even help you to do it without any upfront capital, because if you are registered for their platform and you create a product on their platform, you're able to do pre-sales from a landing page until you have accumulated enough sales to justify or cover all of the manufacturing costs. This is such a powerful way to create a product. I've just recently had the opportunity to meet the founder, and this business is really, really unique. I'm sure there will be others like it in the future, but if you're thinking about creating a physical product to go along with your influencer startup brand, this is a great way to proliferate and move further, move past your initial content creation platform towards some version of world domination. And this can be a great revenue stream as well. So check it out. I'll include the links below. Hoping to do a founder interview with the founder of this company sometime soon. So keep an eye out for that. If you like videos like this one, be sure to subscribe to the channel, like this video, hit that notification button. I'm going to do one more video in this series to wrap things up. And I'm also doing lots of other content related to starting not just influencer startups, but startups of any kind, whether it's technology or food or apparel or cafes and hospitality. This channel has lots of different playlists on how to start these kinds of businesses and to move through this 7-stage process of creating a startup. I also create breakdowns of founder films, movies, films, and series about founders. And so you definitely want to check those out, as well as Q&A. If you're an accidental entrepreneur and you want to start any kind of business, I like to walk through the things that you need to know, the questions I get asked when I'm coaching accidental entrepreneurs, and the kinds of questions that are really helpful as you're just getting started. So if you want to learn more about the EntreProfessor, if you'd like to be part of my coaching community, be sure to check out the links below to learn more. If you're just starting a business, you can download my 21 days to launch checklist for free. Once you've established your influencer startup with a following, as well as a money model where you're starting to generate money and you've standardized your processes, now it's time to think about proliferation and growing your brand from here. Keep going.